one of the big points of contention, of course, after the race was should the race have ended under caution with that wreck with 5 laps to go? Should it have just finished out under yellow? In my opinion, I don't think it should have. I think they made the right call. As someone who is not a fan of overtime like you see in NASCAR, I am a fan of IndyCar doing everything they can to ensure a green flag finish for the fans. Marcus Ericsson questioned the safety of not having a warm-up lap before going back to green. And I'm sure that'll be looked into, but also, I kind of look to the other drivers in their post-race interviews to kind of get some guidance and see, like, okay, is what's the consensus? Is it coming up in every interview? Is Santino Ferrucci talking about it? Is Pilot talking about it? What are they saying? Because they could have just as easily gone to the front, just like Newgarden. Newgarden, a couple of restarts before, had gone from third to first. So, is Santino Ferrucci mad about it? And I didn't really get that notion from any of the other drivers. Alexander Rossi was straight up asked about it, and he was actually more concerned with some of the jumps other people were getting on restarts, including the one that Ericsson had gotten earlier on in the race. So he was really non-committal as far as like talking about it. So I didn't really get the vibe from the other drivers that they felt the same way, or at least were as fired up. Now, granted, obviously Ericsson's in the emotion of not winning the race. He was right there. We saw Pato O'Ward exhibit that very same emotion, not necessarily saying that it was unfair, but just saying that, he was right there and didn't win. So you wonder how much of the concern from Ericsson is legitimate, or if that's just the emotion of, if that's drummed up even more because of the fact that you finished second. Of course, I also enjoyed the people on social media that were saying it was rigged because Penske owns the track, even though he has nothing to do with how the race finishes.
Yeah, he's not an official.
Right, yeah. They're like, oh, of course he did it to benefit his own drivers. Like, you guys do know that's not how that works, right?
Penske also owns IndyCar.
True, yeah, that's... Yeah.
Uh-oh. Time to get out the tinfoil.
All right. Exactly. All right. Well, welcome to the Crash Course Conspiracy Hour, where we're going to dive into the deepest conspiracies of the sport of IndyCar. But no, at the end of the day, I saw a lot of people who were in awe of how great that finish was, which, I agree with. Again, like I said, maybe one of the best finishes I've seen in my time going to the race. And in the end, I do trust IndyCar. Had the race ended under caution, it would have been the third time in the last 5 years that the race had ended under yellow. So it's not as if this is a sport that's super hungry to make sure that the race ends under green no matter what. It's just, hey, they did something a little different this year, and it made for a fantastic finish, and they're always going to try to serve their fans well, and I think that absolutely happened with the green flag on the last lap.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it should have ended under caution. Look, the years that it has ended under caution, as a fan, it's like the end of the race is so good, and then it really ramps up at the end. So much more passing, and it's just crazy. And then there's a wreck with like 6 laps to go, and then it's just done. And you're like, really? That's it? Like, okay. Like, it's so anticlimactic, and I don't know. Even like last year, it felt that way. It was like, oh, okay. And honestly, listening to it on the radio, I thought it was over after that wreck on the front straight. And I said, well, congratulations, because even the guys on the radio, like, there's no way we're going back green. There's no way they're going to red flag this. There's just not enough laps. So I was like, all right, well, congratulations, Marcus Ericsson. Back-to-back winner. And they were even talking about, because there's a separate pot that's been growing since Elio won back-to-back in 01 and 02. There's a pot that's been growing that will be given to a back-to-back winner. So the pot continues to grow now. But I turned it off, and I was thinking, man, for as good as that race was, that ending yet again, anticlimactic. And it's just like kind of a bummer. And then all of a sudden I was texting I was texting my buddy Pat. I was like, okay, which person was I texting about the race? Because it was multiple people. And it was my buddy Pat. And he said, good for Joseph. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, Joseph Newgarden won. I'm like, no way. I turned it off. I thought Marcus Ericsson won. So I checked back in, and sure enough, by the time I turned it on, Joseph Newgard, they were still talking about it. I was like, wow, okay. So I have to tune into this tonight to see what happened. But if anything, this, I think, yes, it wasn't a conspiracy. It wasn't meant to get Joseph Newgarden to win by any stretch of the imagination. If Joseph Newgarden was winning the race, I guarantee you they still would have red flagged it and Marcus Ericsson would have won. It's just that's just the way it goes. But Roger Penske doesn't have a say in what goes on the track during the race because he's not an official. Like I told you, I was like, I wonder if they red flagged it because when they did bring the cars through the first time after the wreck, it was really hairy, like getting those cars through safely. So I wonder if they red flagged it for safety reasons. But then I was like, well, they just could have taken them down pit road and problem solved. Like, and then on the broadcast, they said Marcus Ericsson should just jump it or get called for a false start, and they have to go around again. Which boom, done. You know, but it's I think it was James Hinchcliffe that said no, they're gonna let this thing go green no matter what. Big jump or big pull off, whatever. Um, but this, everybody's talking about this ending. Fans are excited about this ending. Roger Penske's no dummy. He's listening to that. He hears all of this. I wouldn't be surprised to see a green-white checker potentially work its way into IndyCar after this weekend, and just the buzz it has created for the sport. I know you don't like it, but it adds a different dimension, and it caters it caters to the fans. Let's just be honest. It doesn't cater to the drivers. It caters to the fans. And in the end, it's the entertainment business. Look, it's not called Penske Racing Corporation, the overarching umbrella. It's Penske Entertainment. They're in the business of entertaining. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I mean, he's seen how it's worked in NASCAR for so long now, and he just saw how much it excited the fans to have that one lap shootout. I mean, if you have like a 3-lap shootout, 2-3 lap shootout at the end, that's going to be thrilling. But to guarantee that the race is going to end with a green flag. Now, you could do same rules where, hey, once the white flag flies, if there is a wreck, race is over. It doesn't matter because you're going to come back around and you're going to take the checkered flag regardless. But I love the idea of a green-white checker if they brought that to IndyCar, just so it could make sure races would finish under green and make it more exciting for the fans. Because you're right. Because I mean, like I said earlier, it's just when you're watching the Indy 500, when you're there in person, the adrenaline is pumping, the race is great, so much battling going on, and then it just ends under caution because one car spins and gets into the grass, and you're just like, man, it feels like a huge, huge letdown. You're not leaving there amped up from such a great race. You're talking about just how of a bummer the ending was. And I mean, like I said, Roger Penske's smart. He's listening to this stuff. He's hearing the fans talk and the excitement that it drew.
Now, I mean, because I actually was in favor of the Green-White-Checkered. I thought it was a good idea when it was like first implemented in NASCAR. I'm okay with it, but it's what it like the slippery slope that it inevitably leads to. Because now you have literally 3 overtimes in NASCAR that you could potentially go to, which is potentially another, you know, it can devolve into an extra 15 laps, an extra 20 laps. I mean, hey, an extra 20 laps, I mean, that's an extra, that we're talking about the Indianapolis 550, not the Indianapolis 500. And that's what I don't want it to see it devolve into as far as like, hey, it's the guy who's the first to cross the line after 500 miles. That's what the race is. And that's what
And so is the Daytona. Daytona should be that way too. The Daytona
right,
500.
right. And I understand, like, I understand, like, okay, make it the most exciting. And ultimately, I mean, I would not be surprised if that was something that happened. I just don't want to see it turn into, all right, well, somebody crashed this time, so we got to do it again. Okay, another crash happened. We will give you two chances. Because, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's a disappointing ending, but that's sports. I mean, as good as as good as some like playoff runs in other sports. I mean, how many times? I mean, heck, there's times where we get to the Super Bowl and we're all amped up and it ends up finishing, 43-8. There's times where we get to Game 7 of the World Series and the team and gets blown out and it finishes that way. And there's times that, it there's times that it just kind of it ends unsatisfactory. And I understand taking precautions to make sure that it happens less, but you're not going to completely take out anticlimactic endings from notable sporting events. It's just not going to happen. I mean, but it's I get why you would want to implement it, and like I said, wouldn't be surprised to see it. I just don't want it to turn into, all right, well, we're now, because I mean, one of the great things and one of the, at least another interesting thing about the 500 is that some years it comes down to fuel strategy, and if you're now thinking, okay, people are gonna push late in the race, I now have to account for an extra 10, 15 laps. That's gonna, somebody who normally would have won it, is going to be like, well, I would have won it if we hadn't have had 15 extra laps, but because we ran 15 extra laps, I lost. Now, granted, I get under everybody would be like it's the same rules for everyone, but that's just
Right.
not what I want to see happen with it.
But you may see pit stops happen later, so that means much better racing. And in case it doesn't go green, white, checker, these guys are able to actually push it even harder at the very, very end. And look, if you look at IndyCar recently, you're not seeing this across the board on their schedule. It's not typical for for IndyCar races to end under caution. However, recently for the Indy 500, it feels like it's been ending under caution year after year for so many years. I guess not all of them have, because like the 100th running, it felt like it ended under caution with everybody so far behind and Alexander Rossi just coasting it to a victory.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just I don't know. Maybe you put a limitation on how many times it can happen, but that's why I also said, hey, once the white flag flies, no matter what happens, then race is done. Maybe you say we'll have 3 chances to finish it with a green white checker, and then that's it.
And that's the other
But
side
it's
too.
just
You could
because
restart
it's
it
just
3 times and still have the same result as if you would have ended it at lap 200.
but at least as a fan, you walk away going, yeah, there was a concerted effort to get it to be done under green. Right now it's just like when there's like, I don't know, last year Marcus Ericsson won, and I wasn't it Scott Dixon that caused the caution to come out?
No. Was it?
It-
No,
I think it
maybe.
or it was. I know there was a year where it was like somebody won and their teammate wrecked out in the back of the field, and it was like,
I
well,
don't think it
that
was
brings out
Dixon.
the caution,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden the race was done. It's like we
I'll
talk
say
about
this.
conspiracy theories,
I'm
but
here. I'm here for potentially making making a rule. If you're gonna do anything here, if you're gonna do something that maybe avoids a green white checkered, maybe in the future, be like if there is a red flag with less than 3 laps to go, then the race will be given one kind of like an untimed down. You'll get one warm up lap when the race restarts.
that's the
So,
thing though. Like,
and yes, I get it's kind of
how are you gonna prevent then
it's kind of
from
a.
passing?
What do you mean?
How like if that one untimed warm up lap
No. I
at
mean,
full speed?
no. I didn't. That's not what I meant. I mean, like you come out for like one, because that's why Erickson was mad,
Oh
because they
yeah,
didn't get one lap to warm up the tires.
they didn't get one full lap to warm
Yeah,
up the tires.
right.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
so
Okay.
if you make it to be like, well, okay, here's what we do. If there's a red flag that comes out with less than 5 laps to go, what any caution laps or any warm up laps will be kind of now I get it. That's kind of the same as in a way.
Well,
It's kind of this. It's kind of the same thing as a green-white-checkered, but at the same time, it's a rule.
you're not racing.
It's a rule that's so like because this isn't going to happen every year. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, when the whole overtime thing happened last year with the Bills and the Chiefs. Like, it's something that's like doesn't happen every time. So you kind of wonder if changing the rules, you're kind of like chasing, different outcomes of like, okay, you can't account for everything. Sometimes it's just going to be not, an ideal situation. So you wonder if you make a rule that's just kind of so crazy that like, okay, when in the 1% chance, 5% chance that this happens, we have something put in place, but we're not fully changing the outcome of future races and future champions potentially because of this one instance where they changed things up and did something a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
Or
a
green-white-checkered on just ovals, because this doesn't. This
kind of thing. It's not an issue on road courses,
right? Exactly.
It's not, and even most ovals, it's not an issue. We don't see this as an issue at Texas. We don't see this as an issue at Iowa. It just seems like it's been an issue at Indy recently, and I don't know, but I would love to see something just based off because it's all about entertainment still, and based off of the buzz it has created. I would love to see something come of it because I think Roger Penske hears it and knows how exciting it was. He's no dummy. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Or if they just say, you know what, the drivers are right. We'll just stick with ending it under caution if need be.
Yeah, and I don't think they're afraid to keep doing that either.